Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Hearts of Iron 4 as Germany number 5. Poland's alliance block of basically Middle European states, in Eastern Europe kind of, is now at war with us, because we just declared war. The idea being, we just steamrolled through France, so we're just going to steamroll through them in a similar fashion. And quite frankly, we'll just kind of see how that goes for us. The war against France, if you saw that episode, was just a terribly disappointing just walk through, honestly. We didn't even fight the French. So we're just going to pile drive through Poland and hope for the best with that. We are actually fighting their forces, which is a novel concept. And hopefully we'll see if our armies are actually as decent when fighting resistance as they are at just walking through territory. So this will really be the dry run for our attack against the Soviet Union, since we are almost certainly going to have to fight the Soviets at some point, and they will more likely than not provide some level of resistance, so it'll be good to see how we do against that. You'll notice that no divisions are anywhere near Warsaw, so it looks, oh, there is actually a small number of Polish forces in the city. So we'll see if we're able to just move through them, and it looks as though we may actually be able to. We could probably also encircle the city before we just drive all the way through it. We are also fighting all of their allies, so we'll see how well we're able to just sort of plow through them. And this is really just a good test to see what will happen with our infantry groups, which are just led by the AI and standing around behind us, holding the line and whatnot. Which it looks as though they're pretty content to just stay and wait for the armies that we're actively controlling to get all of the gains. They do have attack orders, which it doesn't even look as though they're trying to fill them out. But our armored and mechanized units, which we are directly controlling, are doing a decent job of just plowing through the Polish state. Most of the Polish resistance, luckily for us I guess, is also busy just kind of staring down our troops on the border. So really the vast majority of both nations' military potential is just kind of looking at one another, while a small group which we're directly controlling is actively making gains. So it's somewhat nice, I guess, in the sense that we really do just have the mainstay of the initiative. We are also just plowing through their allies, as I mentioned previously. There are some battles that just aren't going particularly well for us, although we do just have overwhelming superiority throughout, so it seems as though we've got it pretty much well made. You'll notice we kind of just passed Warsaw and have no more objectives. Over here we're having a bit of a harder time plowing through Lithuania than we are through the entire Polish state. And now we've run out of strategic objectives in the center, so I was just kind of plowing our forces even further east. There are some objectives we do have, and we are going to start going after. Although, honestly, I sort of thought they would just kind of collapse after Warsaw fell, and that's why Poland is now two states just kind of split around an armored force. Meanwhile, though, Lithuania is falling, at least somewhat, so that is good news. We are also now splitting our giant armored advance up a little bit to send them towards actual objectives and split the Polish state into even more groups, or partitions, if you will, just to make a sad joke on Polish history. We do also just kind of gun it right on up into, I believe that would be Latvia. Yeah, so we're just charging up into Latvia right now. I really hope that's right. Yeah, it is. Okay, yeah, Latvia. Alright, and we're actually just taking manual control over all these armies, standing around and having them just kind of press forward. It looks like we're having difficulty getting into the forests up in Latvia. Other than that, though, everything's going decently well. Our allies are over in the south, maybe getting gains. We're not really looking too much at them. Poland, at this point, is resisting a bit longer than I thought they would, and we've kind of gotten to the point where our plans are sort of just done. So now it's all just kind of dealing with the issues as they crop up. Apparently Japan just declared war on the United Kingdom, which is interesting. And yeah, so now Japan is in the big leagues in the larger war. It looks as though we could accept them into the Axis. I'm not really looking to do that right now, though, because we are still trading quite a few resources with the Netherlands. However, if they actually ask us, we will accept them, so they just did, so we did. And that brings into being the potential that we will end up fighting the Dutch, which is somewhat worrying. They might join the Allies now that they are fighting against an Axis member, and that means we may have to worry about the Dutch front suddenly picking up. Luckily, Poland has just capitulated, though, so we can go ahead and just kind of see what we're able to grab. It looks as though we can just kind of keep selecting things. I worry for a moment about using all of our points because it looked as though they were our army value points, but they're not. They're a different value of point just for peace deals. So we go ahead and spend what we can, and it looks as though we can just take a couple of these states. It maybe will give us that final one. It looks like we couldn't, so it goes to Hungary, and now Hungary looks a little disgusting. But what can you do? The important thing is that they are on our side and disgusting, which is slightly better, I guess, than them being on a different side and disgusting. At any rate, so we're going to probably fabricate a claim against Estonia just to finish off that front line, move the vast majority of our forces on the border of the Soviet Union. Just by the way things timed out, we ended up managing to get a large border with the Soviets in the end of October. So we're really not in a position to actually do anything about the Soviet Union probably until spring. I mean, we might just give it a try to see if we can, and worst case, they won't be able to launch any counteroffensives because it will also still be winter for them as much as for us. Besides all of that, we're also going to start working on our air forces, generally just moving them away from the east and probably just back to the west to keep fighting the British. We start building even more aircraft since they are attritioning quite a bit at just a worryingly rapid rate. And it seems as though that's really going to be the thing that gets us is aircraft production. We're really going to have to keep it up in order to compete with the British Empire, who will otherwise just bomb us into submission, which is really the exact scenario that led them to have dispersed industry as opposed to concentrated. Now, hopefully we'll be able to use the bonuses from our concentrated industry in order to aid us in just building enough that we will be able to not get bombed into the Stone Age. Alright, besides all that, we get ready for an invasion into Estonia. It'll take something like 25 or 30 days for us to get all the war goals to just go roll on in and annex them. So there we go, we start that up and it'll be 30 days. Hooray for world tension and the fact that the world is technically in just a series of brutal wars. The British are also attempting to land on us, which honestly is just a terrible decision since our entire army, despite staring down the Soviet state, is really just free to do whatever we would like. There are some naval battles which are not going ideally for us, and we did move quite a bit of our air forces over the English Channel to just prevent any sort of attacks against us. That didn't really work out as well as I would like it to, and we may end up pulling back since it does just increase the attrition rate of our air forces, and also give the British a better position to fight us. We do also go ahead and thankfully get some expeditionary units from our allies right when the British land on us. So we're going to just send those expeditionary units and perhaps a couple others to fight off the invasion. And I really don't want to commit too many forces to it. However, we still have several months before we would actually have to worry about a potential Soviet invasion or our invasion of the Soviets. So what we're more likely than not going to do is, one, just have one of our two armored stacks ready to just roll through Estonia. Second, we do go ahead and look at the Japanese, who don't appear to be making very much progress, although they have some very bold plans. Those little lines are planned invasion routes for the Japanese to go over into North America and Canada and such. So yeah, they're big dreamers, the Japanese. We also do go ahead and just pull back from the English Channel and focus on defending the mainland a bit. It looks as though the French are rebelling somewhat, but we don't really have any troops around for that. We're going to first deal with this British naval landing, since, quite frankly, we can deal with that probably a bit easier, and that's more likely to become a problem. Also, it's actually occurring within the core German states. So yeah, this is me just looking at the Japanese and what's all going on there. To spoil it, not very much. And alright, so our forces are just all still lined up and waiting. We are almost done just destroying this British pocket. It looks like they are advancing a little bit in some directions, which is not exactly the greatest thing. We may end up having to dedicate part of our armored corps over to resolving this issue. However, honestly, at the same time, the longer we leave them here, the more troops they'll probably send over, and the more damage we can do to the British. Luckily, we do get this war going against Estonia, so we go ahead and just split our forces up a bit, and we're going to just encircle their capital and hopefully take them over pretty quickly. So that's the plan. We do just kind of roll on in. It doesn't look like they have much of an army. I'm not sure if they ever did. However, we also did fight them a little bit earlier since they're part of that Polish alliance bloc and thus not aligned to anyone else, meaning they're essentially just on their own right now. The Netherlands has accepted a call into the Allies, so we're going to send our other armored unit over to go smash through the Netherlands, and we managed to finish our war against Estonia, so we go ahead and press the Soviet border up against them as well. And we do send that armored column down to the south. We also, in the peace deal, just go ahead and take everything. That armored column we're going to put near the middle of the Soviet Union. Once we deal with all the issues in the west, we'll move the other one to a slightly different position and probably use both of them to just pincer large groups of Soviet soldiers. Since the Soviet Union, I imagine, will have enough divisions that we won't just be able to steamroll straight into their capital, although honestly we may, who knows. So we're going to try to encircle and destroy large groups of Soviet forces. Here we're just realigning our air forces a little bit to make sure that we do have control over the airs of the battlefields that we are fighting on. We also got quite a few divisions from the Italians who we're going to send up onto the new Western Front, which you'll notice is now just all the Low Countries, since they're all essentially back or in the fight for the first time. We are also going to cut down on our production queues a little bit, since we really do have as many forces as I think we'll need. Now, I know that that might be a just horrifically bold statement to make before an invasion of the Soviet Union. However, I do want to free up our production capabilities so that we can build more of an air force and just maintain aerial superiority. Alright, and besides all of that, we are also now beginning our armored invasion of the Netherlands, which is taking the form of one massive armored clump that we are essentially just right-clicking into Amsterdam. And we'll see how well that works, but spoiler alert, I imagine it will go quite well. We also send more of our Air Force over to just keep bombarding them and make them regret their choices, and it looks like there aren't even any Dutch forces in their capital, so we just kind of took it. And I imagine they're going to capitulate in the next couple moments. And there they go, they capitulated. Alright, so now we're going to just smash through all Belgian and French resistance. It looks like they're all British and Allied forces, just kind of milling about. Probably quite a bit of Dutch forces, now almost certainly exiled. I'm not sure if this has that mechanic, but they did in Hearts of Iron 3, and that's what I'm basing it off of. There's another group of French resistance going on, so we're just going to plow through all of it. It looks as though as soon as we actually brought any forces to bear whatsoever, that the resistance proved to be a rather moot point. We still haven't fully defeated that British clump up there, so we send our armored units back. They'll just deal with it. Everywhere else, it looks as though we've managed to just kind of piece together their resistance. That's actually more of a fight than we put up for France the first time round, so hooray, we actually got a Battle of France out of this. And we do send the rest of those soldiers we had sent to the area over to deal with the other French pocket. It looks as though we're also getting landed on in Brittany, but we'll just deal with that when it comes, or when it actually manages to get some lands. Alright, so besides that, we are once again just dealing with our Air Force a little bit, trying to make sure that we have decent levels of air cover over really any of the points that the British can actually reach. Besides that, we'll probably go ahead and move some forces over to the Soviet border and just get ready for our springtime offensive, when we're going to really carve into the Soviet Union and see what sort of resistance we get. Once we manage to defeat and maybe even conquer the Soviet Union, then long term now we'll probably just end up building up a surface fleet, more likely than not naval bombers and just fighter superiority, and then just convoy over our troops into the British Isles. That won't help us if America joins the war. We'll actually have to build a surface fleet for that, but we're getting really ahead of ourselves. So thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll be back tomorrow with more.